Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Candid show. This episode is hosted by myself, Sriram, and Krishna. So, in this episode, we are going to be talking about space, and also we are going to be discussing about various mysteries of space. We'll be talking about various aspects of space, things which most people don't know about or they might even know. So, this episode is basically going to be us discussing certain important questions, or rather, certain mysterious questions, I think, which everybody would want to know the answers to, I guess. So, I'd like to jump right into the actual podcast. So, Krishna, what do you have for the first question of the day?
Speaking about the space, it is completely mystery, and I want to ask you the first question is that about the black hole.
Yeah.
So last year we got the blurry image of the black hole, which was found by a woman who was a MIT student, and it was appreciated across the world. And what do you think about black hole? They say that we can't come outside if we go inside the black hole, so nothing can come out in a full form if it goes inside the black hole. So what do you think about it?
So a black hole is a place in a space-time gravity space-time continuum where it has so much gravity that it pulls anything which is actually near to it. So for example, it can even pull light. So any possible physical entity which is present near a black hole gets pulled into it, and that is how strong its gravitational field actually is. And that is why also the photo of the black hole or actual photograph of the black hole cannot be captured. So moving on to these, there are the various sizes of black holes also. There are small, there are big also, and the big black holes generally called as supermassives, and one of the supermassive black holes is present in our Milky Way galaxy is actually called as Sagittarius, and mass of it is actually about 4 million suns, and you could actually fit in 4 million earths if we consider the actual black hole as a hollow sphere. So the actual formation of black hole is pretty simple actually. So many of these black holes generally form by the process of a dying star, or when a star loses most of its energy, it explodes into it, or it kind of loses its actual physical structure. So that process is actually called supernova, and that is how a black hole is actually formed. So moving on to the problem of why the image of a black hole can be captured, it's because since any of the light particle or any basic substance which goes near the black hole, it basically absorbs it, so nothing can actually come back from it, and that is why you cannot take an actual photograph of it. Because so any kind of a photographic mechanism or a photographic instrument if we use, so the light is basically going to be absorbed into the black hole, and we are not going to get any sort of a reflection back to actually indicate it. So that is why the first image of the black hole, or rather a little bit of a blurred image, it's considered a very big achievement in the scientific community, especially because it was something which is considered pretty much impossible theoretically speaking, and we still managed to accomplish it, which is a very big task, and that is why it is generally considered a very big achievement. So yeah, that is kind of like the basic idea of black hole. Yeah.
So, considering the technological advancement in space research and so on, we have been developed very much. Considering the last 2 or 3 decades, now we have various advanced equipments. So, even in space research, we have been developing day by day. And I want to ask you a question: is that humans are now able to only reach a moon or like Mars? So the humans to reach other planets, so like father planets like Jupiter, or so like the father planets away from from our planet.
Yeah.
So is it even possible in the near future? So do you think we will have the sufficient mechanism to achieve this? Do you think a vehicle or what the rocket have enough fuel or to come and to go to the space and reach the required planet and reach back to the earth?
Yeah, I think fuel is probably the biggest problem in my opinion, Krishna, and also the actual physical structure of the rocket also, because it cannot actually hold, or it cannot withstand that much of a pressure while going through long distance and actually coming back. So there are two big problems, I think, at least to my knowledge. We are not very big scientific experts also, so in my opinion the fuel is going to be probably the most biggest problem in my opinion, because the fuel is not going to have much of an efficiency. So obviously the actual distance of going to, at least going on a one-way trip at least, is not even possible right now. So we have to kind of engineer, or rather kind of R&D kind of have develop a kind of a fuel which gives us a lot of efficiency, with just less quantity also, because obviously we cannot load up on a lot of fuel and take off the rocket, because obviously fuel is going to weigh it down. So obviously if there are a lot of factors to consider. So fuel is obviously, rocket fuel is something which even now we cannot travel to very very far the distances, and actually going to very very far the planets you've not even been to. So it is going to be a very big feat if something like that eventually happens, and I'm sure it will happen, no doubt about it. But I think it's going to definitely take a lot amount of time. It's going to take a lot of research, and we have to also come up with some kind of a different kind of ideology, or rather a different kind of mechanism which kind of supplements the rocket's hull, basically the rocket's physical strength, because obviously we cannot keep going or keep pushing the rocket to its maximum limits. Obviously it's going to have to, as we keep going farther and farther, temperature of the atmosphere is, or the temperature of the actual space is going to keep reducing and reducing, so it's going to have an effect on the rocket's atmosphere, on the body. So we have to come up with some kind of a shielding equipment, or basically a better kind of a mechanism, actually a safer mechanism, or rather a faster mechanism to keep moving on into the solar system. So I think obviously the fuel, which will definitely will come up with an answer, I'm sure, and mechanism also should not be a very big difficult task. So yeah, these are the two big criteria, or two important things which will help us to actually explore more and more the space, in my opinion. Yeah.
So, considering the space, the Earth, planet Earth, is the only planet that sustains life in our solar system, and we don't know whether something is actually existing in the other solar systems other than our solar system. So, Shiram, do you actually believe the theory of the existence of aliens? So, like speaking about aliens, I don't say what they show on the movies, but do you really think there is some existence of life in the outer space?
Yeah, I think definitely I'm 100% sure about it. I have no doubt also, because I think we obviously don't know a lot of things about this world, because I think there are so many mysteries to this world. There is so many things which have not even graced the surface as well. We probably only know 1% of our total Earth and our solar system also. So I'm definitely, that one fact alone is kind of convincing to me, to make me believe that there are a lot of other creatures, or a lot of other species which are much more advanced than us. And I think believing that also should not be a very big difficult task, because obviously we haven't even explored even 5 or 10% of the actual solar system. So it would be fair to assume that we had a similar kind of inhabitants who are present in other planets also, and this kind of an assumption, or rather this kind of a statement which I am making right now, could not be regarded as some kind of a hypothesis. I think this could actually make sense to people, not only people who see movies, or not only people who kind of like to fantasize, but I think the reality of it is also something which I am very interested in, because the fact that someone is actually watching over us, or some kind of a species much more very intelligent than us, is actually kind of supervising over us, or rather kind of waiting for the right moment to kind of invade us, and all of this does seem like movies, and that is just because there have been so many movies about it. So we've kind of lost the interest in it, or rather we kind of only see it as a point of fantasy, and we never kind of give it some kind of a realism to it. So to answer to your question, there are definitely a lot of extraterrestrial species in this universe, in this space, in our entire solar system. So I think I'd be very sure, and definitely there is some things which you have to yet discover in this world, and definitely extraterrestrial species are one of them.
Yeah, I also believe that there is some form of existence of life other than our planet, so like other than our solar system. Even though if we also find traces of water and many things that is common on Earth, on other planets of our solar system, but also I strongly believe that there is some life form existing on other solar systems. We don't know anything exactly about space. It is completely theory, and what according to the technology that we are able to see it. So
Yeah.
I also strongly believe that something is out there. Yeah, not humans, or like there may be anything. So like any life form existing in the outer space. So the next question I want to ask you is that do you think wormhole actually exists? So, and why can't the humans actually find traces of its existence?
So to put it in simple words, so the wormhole is basically, let us assume it's an A4 sheet size paper. Okay, so for example, you want to travel from one point A to a very distant point B, and let us assume A and B are two extremely farther points on A4 sheets of paper. So according to you, the fastest way would be, or the most straight possible way would be, just to draw a line from the point A and B, and that would be the shortest distance, or rather the only way to actually travel from two extremely farther points. So Let us assume we are actually bending the sheet of paper. Now poke a hole through one side of the paper and you can obviously see another kind of a hole coming out to the other side. So this hole which you've actually created is actually the shortest path between the points A and B, and this actual phenomenon is called wormhole. So the same thing happens in a space-time continuum where the space-time fabric kind of bends itself to form some kind of a spheroidal shape such that we actually can travel between two extremely farther points in the shortest time possible, and that is called a wormhole. And it is generally connected via a mechanism which is called so the mouth of the wormhole is generally spheroidal in shape, and there are two openings to it. There is one, or there is an entrance to the wormhole and there is an exit to the wormhole, and the entrance and the exit are connected by a throat, and this throat is generally termed as the Einstein-Rosen bridge. And many scientists have actually formulated a lot of theories to prove this, but still we have very minimal proof, or rather we don't have any concrete evidence to prove the existence of Einstein-Rosen bridge. And Einstein's theory of relativity was the only thing which actually gave us a hint as to the existence of wormholes. And also the actual detection of wormholes is very difficult because they are ferociously unstable, because they have any kind of a small mass. If it enters through the wormhole instantly collapses on itself, so leaving it, there is basically no trace of actually it existing, and that is the very big problem. So one way or the other which could actually help, or we could do something in the near future to actually give it little bit of stability at least, is to add some kind of an exotic matter to it, because on addition of some kind of an exotic matter onto the wormhole, it kind of gives us a temporary stability, so which kind of helps us to at least detect it, and that is the most we can do up till the current technology which we have. So yeah, that is the basic idea of a wormhole.
Yeah, I actually accept with your fact about the existence of wormhole. But what you told is right. But also, I have a doubt that I have a question for you, that
Yeah.
only by judging with the existence of all the theories. So, like, we can't judge anything by only theoretical explanation of its existence. So, how do you actually believe that the wormhole is actually present in this space, and we don't have any kind of proof to prove that is actually existing?
So yeah, that is a fair question, but I think generally in the scientific community, people kind of regard something which is to be true only with concrete evidence against that matter. So we do have proof of wormholes, in the sense it is not like we have completely dry of resources or not completely dry of any kind of proof. We do have Einstein theory of relativity, which actually kind of gives a good explanation about its existence, but still because of its inherent instability we are not able to get any kind of an experimental evidence, or at least some kind of a physical significance to actually prove its significance. But still I think we have to kind of sometimes, I think even with the kind of substantial evidence which you have right now, believe in certain things. I'm not saying it is even now we cannot tell it with 100% certainty that wormholes do exist, but probably with the sheer or a small amount of evidence which you have, I think it would be safe to say at least that there it might exist. Even though all scientists do not 100% agree with this fact, they would at least be able to at least believe it, that there is something called a wormhole. And I think that substantial evidence which you have right now, I think, is enough to believe, even though since there is no concrete evidence, I do agree with that fact. But I think it would be at least there would at least be a little bit of hope, considering we have this small amount of theory to actually kind of maybe believe that wormholes do exist. But obviously we cannot see it in our naked eyes, or we cannot have any good proof, but that does not mean it is not there. So yeah, that's your answer to the question, I think. Yeah.
So yeah, we recently came to know about the fact that in the planets of Saturn and Jupiter in our solar system, there is actually a diamond rain, that where tons and tons of diamonds kind of rain. Actually, it kind of falls from the sky, and there is actually diamond rain in those planets. So, speaking about the humans reaching farther planets, Shiram, I want to ask you is that can humans in future, say in like 4 to 5 decades, can they build a mechanism where they can reach Jupiter and get back from Jupiter to safely to Earth? So, do you really think that humans can harvest these diamonds in the future? So, what do you think about it, and do you think it is really possible?
Yeah, Krishna, I think there is very good possibility of it, and at least I would like to believe it, because once we figured out the traveling part to such very big such planets, I think the extracting process should not be very difficult. Because to give a brief background about what it actually is, the diamond rain. So in planets of Saturn and Jupiter, there are frequent lightning storms there. So what happens is that the lightning storm generally turn the methane which is present in the air into carbon, which is also called a soot. And the carbon, as it falls down through the atmosphere, picks up heat, and it actually hardens into chunks of graphite. And graphite is generally very found in thin strips of like very thin strips. And this graphite later turns into diamonds. So that is the basic idea behind it. And we can also see that their size is roughly about a centimeter in diameter, so it's not very big. So I think the only issue is going to be that the actual traveling part of it, because obviously we cannot travel to Saturn or Jupiter with our current technological conditions. So I think the extraction part will not be the most difficult. It should be fairly easy, because I think obviously we would find it probably in mounds, and mounds probably would find mountains of such diamond rain. And I think the actual extraction part is probably the easiest thing in my opinion. Actually reaching it there probably will be the most hardest part in my opinion. Yeah.
So yeah, I want to ask you another question about space, which is actually completely mystery, and we don't exactly know what is in space, or how much is the limit of space. So we don't know anything apart from our planet. We can actually find some small amount of clues about any existence of any material or anything in the outer space. But I want to ask you is that do you think space is infinite, or do you think it is a bound entity?
So a very difficult question. So in my opinion, at least, I think there is no limit to space. I think it is. I think it's a very very huge assumption. No solid evidence, or none of, we have basically no kind of a proof to actually tell that space is actually infinite. But I think I would like to believe it is, because since we don't know nothing about space, to be honest, we probably know about 5 to 10% of it, just like the most of the things in this world. So I think it would be very fair to say that we haven't actually explored anything past our solar system, and I would like to believe at least that there is something more to this space, more to universe than our solar system alone. And also I think not generally I would like to believe in the fact that nothing in the world is infinite most of the time. But we generally give the term infinity to something which we don't know much about, or rather which we have no clue about. And that is why the kind of the term infinity is generally used in the context where we generally have no idea to how much it actually goes on and on. So we generally term it as the word infinity. And finite is something which is, like, most of the time it is countable, and obviously you cannot count universe, or rather you cannot measure universe in its actual dimensions. So I think most of these kind of things which we kind of substantially put up, or circumstantially kind of give evidence to kind of prove ourselves, or rather at least I would like to convince myself into believing that there is infinity to space. And infinity space is definitely infinite in length, and there is probably no end to it. It probably keeps goes on and on and on, and I don't know, probably it could go to some other dimension also. Probably if we figure out some kind of a time traveling formula, probably if we could travel farther and farther into the space, we could probably end up in some kind of a different dimension. There is just loads and loads of theories, there's loads and loads of mysteries around this. And I think, so in my opinion, a simple answer to this would be yes, there is infinity to space. Space is definitely infinite. Yeah.
So yeah, coming to our planet Earth, we have this ozone layer that actually kind of protects us from the harmful UV rays from the sun, and it is the only source of protection for the Earth's atmosphere from preventing the harmful UV rays of the sun. So we recently kind of know about the ozone layer, the size of the ozone layer getting expanded over the Antarctic region. So it is actually, the size is actually increasing. So if we keep on doing all the pollutions and all the things which kind of affects the nature, or like the air pollution, so if we keep on doing this for the next 5 or 6 decades, or even for 10 decades, if the ozone layer completely gets depleted, so do you think the earth will implode itself, or like it will break completely into pieces, or do you think that only the life forms will get extinct?
Yeah, Krishna, I think there's very high possibilities of it, because once the hole actually expands, we'll probably get probably 95 to 99% of the radiation, because since the ozone layer probably shields most of the radiation around it. So probably the trees or any kind of a natural thing will probably die out because of that intense amount of radiation, and eventually humans also will die. And I think the earth cannot also persist that much amount of radiation for such consistently long time. Probably the earth will definitely break apart, and I think it, for any kind of a substance, I think it cannot hold on to that much radiation for such a long amount of time. Probably the earth could absorb the radiation at least for a considerable amount of of time, but eventually I think it will probably blow up, or rather it will kind of collapse on itself probably, and we'd probably get some other kind of formation, or some probably a different version of Big Bang version 2.0 or something like that. So probably yes, definitely the humans would definitely die. I'm pretty sure about that, and probably the Earth would definitely get destroyed or probably crumble within itself, I think. Yeah.
So yeah, speaking about space, it is actually mystery, and we don't have exact answers to its happenings, and we don't know anything exactly or 100% about the space.
Yeah.
We have to be more sure, and we have to develop ourselves by the technologies. So we have right at our generation, and I hope, considering the technological advancement for the over for 4 to 5 decades, we have pretty much developed very much in the space research, and there are many technologies in Earth to find out many mysteries in the outer space. So that is the end of this podcast, guys. If you have any kind of comments, suggestions, or criticism, please leave it in the comment section. Thank you for listening.
Thank you all.